G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. Well, we do have some exciting Canon news that I think pretty much affects every player in the photographic market. Well, they've dropped not one, but two new APS-C cameras. And in this video, I'll quickly talk about the specs, but I expect that everybody's pretty much across those by now. But what I do want to talk about is how are these two cameras, and especially the R7, how do they fit, how do they affect each of the players? Olympus, Sony, Nikon, and Fuji. There's a lot going on in the camera world now, and I think there's more to come. Fuji have just announced their May 31st event, and we're certainly expecting some very exciting things in the APS-C format. Let's talk about the R7 and how it's going to affect, or how it's already affecting, the rest of the market. Alright, R7, R10. Well, the R10 is an extremely entry-level camera, including an APS-C 24 megapixel sensor. And what else have we got in there? Some of the headline features include up to 23 frames per second shooting with an electronic shutter and 15 frames per second with a mechanical shutter. That's pretty fast. I mean, that's faster than my D4 that cost almost $10,000 in this country 10 years ago. My, how things have changed. It's got oversampled 4K 30p and 4K 60p with a crop. And that's a crop on top of the already 1.6 crop that comes with Canon APS-C. It's going to have true HDR 10-bit video. So 10-bit video is pretty cool when 8-bit's been ubiquitous for a long time, but now in entry-level cameras, we're starting to see 10-bit. Are these the most entry-level cameras that have 10-bit video? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below. And the R10 only has a single SD card slot. It's a UHS Type 2 slot. Now, most entry-level cameras, whether we're talking in the Sony range or the Nikon range, they tend to come with only one SD card slot. Speed may vary, as well as mileage. And interestingly, the R10 comes with a pop-up flash, so this really does make it an entry-level, all-rounder sort of camera you might pick up at Costco, I think, camera. And they're really trying to grab that very much. I'm a part-time photographer. I buy a camera like this just for special occasions and maybe going on holidays. Does this market even exist anymore? I'm not sure. Cameras like the Nikon Z50 also have a pop-up flash, so clearly manufacturers think these things still have a place. And of course, many of you out there use the pop-up flash actually as a fill flash or a flash to fire other flashes. I certainly have done that myself. Now, this camera is expected to be coming in at $979 US for the body only, or $1,099 with the 18 to 45, or $1,379 with the 18 to 150. That's a pretty cool kit lens. And with that 1.6 crop, that's giving you a pretty powerful catch-all zoom lens with, well, f-stops of 3.5 to 6.3. There's a lot of cameras in this space that you might find in the Sony range, the Fuji range, the Nikon range. Lots of competition. This is the entry level. What I'm more interested in talking about today is the R7, and I think this is the sort of camera that a lot of action and bird enthusiasts might be quite interested in. And in the case of the Nikon range, is this something like a D500, a high-speed cropped sensor camera? I think it is, and this is why it's exciting to talk about. Let's quickly talk about the specs of the R7. It has a 32.5 megapixel sensor. It shoots up to 30 frames per second in E-shutter mode and up to 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. It also includes in-body image stabilization, which is rated at a whopping 7 stops. It has oversampled UHD 4K up to 30p and line skipped or cropped 4K 60p. Also, it has inbuilt 10-bit video and it's got C-Log as well. This is amazing for a camera that's this cheap. It also has twin UHS Type 2 SD card slots. And this has a higher level of weather sealing than the R10. It also has mic and a headphone socket, unlike the R10, which just has a mic socket. Now, something that's super interesting about the R7 and the R10 is they are using front side illuminated, non-stacked sensors. So they are front side illuminated sensors. Now, this is interesting considering they've got electronic shutters that are running super fast. Now, of course, they're not at the sort of pixel counts that we're talking about with a Sony A1 or a Nikon Z9, but there's not that big a difference between 33 megapixels and 46 megapixels. I suppose it's 50% more, and perhaps that makes the difference. It certainly seems like Canon are squeezing a lot out of these sensors to be able to have this, well, let's face it, this is a previous technology. It's actually sort of 2 generations behind what you might call the current technology, which is backside illuminated, and then the next technology after that was stacked backside illuminated technology. Now, of course, this is a way to keep the price down. It makes perfect sense. These cameras seem to be pretty well priced from my perspective, considering the speed that they run at, considering the focus systems that they have and all the subject detection that they have, which is trickled down from the R3 and the frame rates that they can shoot at. There's an interesting balance going on here, and I really look forward to seeing how they actually come out tested in the real world. Are there any compromises with having this older technology, but obviously and clearly and absolutely still very relevant technology? The body only of the R7 is $14.99 US. And with the 18 to 150, it is $18.99 US. So at this price point, where does it fit? Who does it compete with? And who's it aimed at? Well, in the Sony range, it might be something similar to the Sony a6600. And in the Fuji range, well, maybe it sits somewhere near the X-T4. To me, what's most interesting about this camera is, and this is something that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, is that we're now in this situation where birders are looking for cameras that just aren't the higher end cameras. And let's say you're talking about the Sony range. Well, is the A1 the only camera they could get? They could get something like an A9, but maybe the pixel count on an A9 or an A9 II is not where they need it to be. So maybe they're having to look at something like an A1. In the Nikon range, you've got the Z9, and what are the other options right now? And we've talked about the fact that, well, a lot of people are looking for a D500 replacement, and when is that going to come? Or a D850. That might serve the purpose as well. And even in Canon's own lineup, if you want the 50 megapixel monster that allows you to have the high frame rates and lots of megapixels, well, you've got to go something like the R5. In all cases, these cameras are a lot more expensive. You could perhaps even argue that the Sony a7 IV is also in a way a competitor here to the R7, but again, it's a lot more expensive. So this is what I find most interesting about the R7. It's a crop sensor, so it gives all your lenses that extra reach. Suddenly, from an equivalence perspective, let's say you've got a 100mm lens, well, it goes out to 160mm equivalent. And that's just all some people want. They just want more reach without having to do anything in particular, but they've still got 33 megapixels. So right now in the mirrorless market, is this camera somewhat unique? Sure, the R10 is a stripped down version of it, but the R7, which is faster, it has a deeper buffer, it's more useful for sports, wildlife, birding, and so on. I mean, we're yet to see exactly how the focus system performs, but let's assume it's up there somewhere with the best of what Canon can do already. This is a really interesting camera, and it says to me that if Nikon want to also be in this space, then indeed we may well see a D500 replacement. Because Canon, well, here they are. I feel like this camera is perfect for that sort of market. We may well see it from Nikon soon. From a Sony perspective, well, I'm not sure. We've heard that the A7 IV is great for birding. I'm not sure that it's as great for birding as has been made out. I have used the A7 IV and it has a particularly slow sensor in it compared to some of the other options out there like a Z9, an R5 or an A1 or even the new Olympus OM1. And obviously we've got some exciting stuff from Fuji, well, next week at this point in time. Right now, today, the R7 sits in a place on its own. I think what we're expecting to see from Fuji next week could well see that Fuji get pretty close. If the rumors are correct and it's 26 megapixels for their high-speed camera, well, there's not a very big difference between 26 megapixels and 33 megapixels. It would be something like 700 or 800 pixels difference on the long edge. Look, it's super interesting times. The mirrorless market, it's just maturing at such a high speed with Olympus and their OM1, new stuff from Fuji, Canon suddenly dropping these cameras, seemingly for me, out of nowhere. We've got the A7 IV, which I don't think is in the discussion because it's not APS-C, and I think really all that's left is to see how Nikon are going to respond to all of this. What are they going to do? Are they going to drop something entry level for the rest of this year, or are they going to drop something in this space that's either APS-C and it's pretty much a D500 replacement, or is it going to be more the D850, the kind of epic all-rounder? It's fast and you can crop it and make it like a D500. It's a really interesting time, but I certainly think the R7 is throwing down the gauntlet for that entry-level birder space. I mean, it's not quite an entry-level price, but it's very close to it, yet I think it's delivering a lot of power at that price point, and you've got access to the full RF mount. Great work, Canon. Obviously, everybody's chipping away at slightly different areas, whether it's Sony with the A7 IV, a great all-rounder. Fuji are about to get out an amazing APS-C all-rounder. I'm sure it'll be good at birding as well. And, well, we are yet to see what Nikon are going to do for the second half of 2022. And might I add, people are sort of suggesting that Nikon's being quiet, but to be honest, Sony haven't released anything since the A7 IV from a body perspective, and that was the 23rd of December, the day before the Z9 started shipping. Well, everybody has to get their own week to launch things, so Fuji week is next week. Who knows what might come from Sony or Nikon after that. Let's see. Anyway, the Canon R7. I think it's very interesting, and I think great work from Canon. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think the Canon R7 affects the market in general? Do you think it has any impact? Do you think it's a great entry-level birding camera? Could it be a great B camera? I think there's lots of options here as to where this fits in. All right, it's been so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. And if this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, please click on that like button, and don't forget to click on the bell as well, so then you'll be notified as to when I'm next back. All right, I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.